The sector of the day yesterday, of course, was banks and financial services, something which Nishal also, of course, pointed out is something he likes the best. The Bank Nifty hit a new high and the PSU Bank Index was up some 3.5–4%. Nitin Agarwal is Senior Group Vice President, Head BFSI Institutional Equities at Motilal Oswal Financial Services. Nitin, good to have you with us here. Good morning. Prashant this side. What are your top ideas from here in the entire BFSI space? If we can get sort of that from you, and then we can pick on individual names from there out. Go on.
Yeah, hi Prashant, good morning. And yes, banks overall outlook looks to be pretty strong, especially after the recent poll results. And if you look at the sector hasn't really performed, especially the large cap private banks and SBI also within PSUs. And going ahead, looking at how the earnings growth is likely to pan out and with some positivity that is now emerging even on the corporate loan demand. We think that the sector will likely maintain the earnings momentum, what it has been sustaining for last 3 years, while of course the growth will moderate on a comparative basis, but still we are looking at a further improvement in ROAs and ROE for the sector. And we maintain our preference for ICICI Bank, IndusInd Bank, SBI, Axis Bank. These 4 banks are also top banks.
And NBFCs, between banks and NBFCs broadly, do you prefer banks? Because NBFC's cost of funds is going to go up with the increase in risk weight. So, the big first call on NBFCs?
Yeah. So we will be selective in NBFCs, you are right. With the recent increase in risk weights, banks will likely pass through some impact of that by increasing the rates to NBFCs, and they will need to diversify funding sources. But having said that, we still find some pockets of opportunities within NBFCs. We like Chola within the vehicle financing space. Within housing space, we like PNB Housing. And within non-lending financials, which I think is another space which is seeing a tremendous interest. And with IVs likely to hold high ahead of the general elections, this space can see continued interest. So therein we continue to like stocks like Angel One, which has been a top buy for us, and looking at the huge SIP flows that are continuing and the rise in the overall AUMs for the industry. And the AMCs and the other capital market companies are also likely to do well, wherein we like a 361.
Hi Nitin, morning. Angel One, that one has really done well in the last few months, and that's one of the stocks that you're positive on as well. Nitin, 2023 actually belonged to the PSUs, and they definitely did better than what the private sector banks. Do you think at current reckoning, give and take everything, 2024 could be tilted more towards the private sector banks, or do you believe that the PSUs still offer good opportunity?
I think, last 12 to 18 months, it was completely the PSUs who outperformed massively. If you look at some of these banks, like doubled and even tripled over last 2-year basis. But incrementally, I think the performance, while it will remain pretty strong from both these segments, but the divergence will not be as high as what we have seen. And PSUs, there has been earlier questions around underwriting, their ability to deliver earnings across cycles. But with the possibility of this government now coming back, I think the questions, therefore, on the underwriting and the cyclicality, therefore, has come down. And to that extent, we can see continued trending in the ROAs that we are looking at these PSU banks. Most of them have already reached 1 to 1.1 ROA, and few of them are now targeting to deliver 1.2 ROA in the coming quarters and by FY25. And which is where we again see further scope of more re-rating in these banks. And just by the CAGR rollovers and growth, we think the returns can be pretty healthy in both PSUs and privates on the other hand, driven again by valuations which are very supportive, because these banks have not really performed. If you look at the top private banks, they have been very range bound in the last 1 year. So the combination of therefore the stronger growth outlook and the reasonable valuations will drive numbers or will drive returns for these banks.
And your best pick is SBI, Nitin, you're saying, right?
Within PSUs, we like SBI, Canara, Union Bank.
Okay, Canara, Union Bank as well. Do you have coverage on REC and PFC, Nitin?
No, Prashant, as of now, we are not covering those names.
Okay. Okay. Broadly, I mean, we spoke with the management of REC yesterday, right? They said that between now and 2030, that some I think 320 gigawatts of thermal power needs to be added. Some 30 lakh crore needs to be funded. That's the funding requirement. And they're saying that they're hoping to sort of lend about 3 lakh crores out of that between now and 2030. And the current renewable book is 30,000 crores. So the runway is very long. But and of course, it's, as they say, it's easy to give money. The real deal is collecting it. Are there any risks, as you see, Nitin, with this? Because I put it to them, and they said, well, it's technology may change, and cost of a lot of the stuff needs to come down on the renewable side, batteries, etc. Any thoughts here? I know you don't have coverage, but broadly.
We used to cover these stocks long back, and there has always been concerns around the long gestation period and regulatory delays and the other clearances, and which stalls the cash flows and the supply from the underlying projects. But I think the system has seen big improvement, and even within banks, I think they are now focusing more on the other segments and not as much on the long-term infra financing as such, especially the private banks, and which is where PFCs and REC, they have a very long runway for growth and on a relative basis. And looking at the overall country's growth and the requirements, these companies will likely do well in terms of sustaining this growth over the years. Risk, of course, one will have to be a little watchful given how the equation is changing between renewable and non-renewable. And because these are very long-term contracts that you get in, and therefore any cash flows related issues will have to be watched out. But I think at the margin, things of course are looking positive, and these companies are generating pretty healthy profitability, very high dividend yields, and valuation that still looks quite reasonable in that context.
Okay. Just to kind of hop back to another bank, Nitin, Kotak Bank, right? They've got a new man in charge at the top. 4 years, stock's not really done very much. Overall environment seems to be supportive. Any thoughts here, Kotak?
Yeah. So I think Kotak overall, we will have to see as to how the strategy remains under the new CEO, because Kotak, if you look at last 12 months to 18 months, their growth has been pretty strong in the unsecured. The overall loan growth has also been quite healthy. But with RBI continuously indicating to moderate the growth in unsecured, they've taken steps to increase the risk weight. We'll have to see how the Kotak looks at its own unsecured loan growth and what the strategy is for the new CEO, therefore. And the stock has gone through classic derating. We downgraded the stock 3 years back, and we remain watchful of as to how the growth and the numbers will pan out. Because if I look back like last 12 or 18 months, Kotak has seen a very sharp increase in unsecured, higher than what the other banks. Of course, that is also driven by the low base that the bank is at. And but incrementally, the driver of growth, what will it be? We'll have to see. And especially also other things also will be the stability in the top management team. And we have seen in some of the other banks that post a management change, you will want to be a little more watchful around that, because the execution is going to be very important, especially such a big leadership change that has happened after such a long time.
Nitin, great chatting with you this morning. Have a good day, and thank you very much for joining in.